What should you never do in the United States? Anything that makes one person rich and makes others homeless is 100% legal here in the Hodolas of A. We can still get free opioids, fentanyl, guns aren't free but cheap and easy to get. All you need is a job. If it's minimum wage you'll get free pills and you can get a gun with the payday loan and you can easily kill a lot of people with the gun and drugs. Then when you can't pay the loan back you can eat some fentanyl or just eat a bullet if you have ammo. We encourage that SHY here man. Speaking of rollovers, 15% of all new payday loans end up in a 10 loan series. I figured that no matter what, they needed high rates due to a high rate of default. Then, I learned that their default rates are not much worse than credit card companies. The average $375 loan ends up with $520 in fees on top of principal. Insane. Yeah, that's the issue. They're not doing it for fun. I took one out, but I was extremely careful. I knew 100% that my paycheck was coming on a certain day. I took out $100, I had zero at the time, was an emergency. I ended up paying like $107 total. $7 interest. Paid it on the exact day I said. The problem is, if anything happened and if I didn't have that money, all hell would have broken loose. But at the time I had absolutely not a single person to turn to. It was a very, very bad time in my life. And that was the absolute only way I could have done anything. I would recommend for people in that extremely f-ket up situation, to pawn something. Pawn and selling are different. Pawn is a loan and what you give them is collateral. The interest is usually not too bad. This is just a better route because if all hell breaks loose, maybe you end up losing a Wii U or something and that's it. Instead of one hellish cycle. But that's only if you're in an impossible position. Unfortunately some people just are in that situation. I'm doing much better now and I'm living a decent middle-class life, thankfully. But there are a lot of poor people who can't get together $10 for gas. 73% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. Our system is truly messed up. They can charge so much interest because they know people are in that situation. Or else nobody would ever take out a payday loan, of course. I've got mixed feelings on them. At the very, very least, the interest rate needs to be capped at a somewhat normal level. If they aren't banned, of course. Oh yeah. In college towns I see so many. I wondered how they could all compete. Then I saw they up your limit with whoever you stick with. I had to do it a few times in my college days a long time ago. Mostly for power bills and such. It's not worth it as if you're late and the fee they add on will rue you. Also those hot checks they send out. I got plenty when I was in college. When I was a student I was targeted hard with money being thrown at me, that probably ruin a lot of young kids none the wiser. Payday loans are pure evil. I got stuck in a loop years ago because I was trying to raise my credit and didn't qualify for anything other than a loan. After 6 months of climbing their tiers I asked when they were going to send info so my credit and can be updated and was told I need to do another 6 months and climb more. I straight up hung up and never paid them back and to my surprise it never appeared on my credit report. Nah. It's still the norm for people to stay in the car during a police stop here as well. Like if you got out of your car in Australia the cop would just tell you to stay in the car so you don't get ran over. They wouldn't take it as an act of aggression and pull their gun out. My old man still gets out of the car every time he gets pulled over. I think he thinks it's some kind of power move so he is looking the guy in the eye rather than getting talked down to, but probably just succeeds in irritating the cop and increases his chances of getting a ticket. When your job description explains the danger, either man up or find a factory job if you can't handle the danger. Stock groceries at a Walmart or something that doesn't expect an employee to protect the innocent citizens in their workplace. Or, in the case of the Uvalde shooting when a small army of cops were fighting over who was in charge and a fear of dying. That's actually a F-kin cop's job to show all the bravery you're supposed to have and not the cowardice of the entire department. I think it's more like, in AU/NZ the chances of a gun in the car is slim to none that it doesn't bear worrying about. More likely for the cop to die that day in a car crash than being shot, for example. When someone does use a gun, even as just a threat, because it's so rare they become public enemy number one and the police will never rest until you are caught. So, packing a gun in your car is a really dumb move. Hence, it's very very rare for a car to have a gun in it. I think I've only ever seen a cop even put their hand to holster once, never seen them drawn. I'm originally from NZ and police there didn't carry guns when we left, not sure about now, so it's always weird when you're somewhere like McDonald's and they wander in with their guns on their hips. We have occasional police shootings but they're usually pretty justified and are always investigated. Although in the 1980s/90s Victorian police were under fire, pun intended, for their use of deadly force after some high-profile incidents. I don't think that's reasonable here. You have to remember in the UK and Australia it's mostly illegal for citizens to own a gun, much less carry one concealed on their person. In America we have more guns than people. I have a general dislike for cops, but I can't imagine telling a cop we're going to intentionally send you into dangerous situations with potentially armed people on a daily basis, and keep you unarmed. I feel we should already know these things about other countries. Not enough world civics is taught here. It just embarrasses me. Our education system doesn't teach nearly enough about culture of other countries. Plus, sadly, we do have a reputation the world over about being too content with our education system having tunnel vision when it comes to world events and why they happen. We're in such a bubble over here. It shouldn't. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to not know about other countries, and most don't know that when they come here, as you can see in this thread. Americans seem to often hold themselves to some higher standard that they think everyone else in the world is up to for some reason, whereas the truth is that random people are just as ignorant in other countries. For example, I'm from Mexico, and a random villager in some butt-K town is way more ignorant of the world than your average American. As they should be. Why the hell would someone who never leaves their country know things like that? I know Americans like to be really self-deprecating, but I can't help but want to reassure the Redditor Americans that hate themselves because they can't name every city in the world in reverse alphabetical order on command. It's perfectly normal to not know how the police work in every country in the world, lol. I've had mainly positive experiences with cops. I did have one idiot that escalated a mental health crisis with my ex-partner, which led to a SWAT-type siege situation. He was threatening harm to himself and was the only person in the house, and my ex being tased and stomped on. He was a jerk. But the ones that came to my parents' home when my mom passed away were incredible. They made up for that one idiot. This is still highly dependent on race though. Aboriginal guy gets out of the car and he's going to have a different experience to the white guy getting out of the car. Police are less likely to shoot in Australia because the civilians are less likely to have a firearm. However, they are just as violent. Unlike the US, we don't really have smaller town-based policing. We have a statewide police force that services everywhere, and a federal one. This means they have a bigger media and PR wing to control the narrative. One friend of mine is white, fairly tall for a woman, and has giant bright blue eyes. She constantly had people ask, or not ask, to take her picture when she studied in China. Another friend is super pale and incredibly blonde, like the palest blondest person I've seen that doesn't have albinism. He got gawked at constantly when he did Doctors Without Borders in Africa. The pictures I saw were hilarious. I don't know how a camera could catch the contrasting skin tones so well. Also, turn the vehicle's ignition off. Remove your sunglasses. Turn off the radio. Roll down your windows, particularly if they are tinted. Turn on the interior lights at night. And don't reach for anything in the vehicle without being asked to do so, and even then announcing your intentions. My rental paperwork? Yes, it's in the center console. Edit, by the way, all this and more I learned very early in my driving career from a great book called A Speeder's Guide to Avoiding Tickets by James M. Egan, a retired New York State trooper. It also has other, safety, applications as well. All these things are designed to calm down Officer Neckvein, as he's referred to in the book. The book seems to be out of print, but it's well worth the read if you can find it.